Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion today, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience of SmithWeekly, including Sean M., Edward S., Mark R., Brian H., and Todd A. On the program today, Dr. Andrea Marsland-Smith is returning to the program. Andrea is the Chief Executive Officer of Alligator Energy, an Australian-focused uranium developer with its Samphire uranium project in South Australia, which is in its development stages and currently undergoing field recovery trial to de-risk and confirm ISR extraction methodology for the project. Alligator Energy also has large-scale exploration projects at Big Lake, South Australia, and also in Northern Territories with its Alligator River Uranium Province exploration grounds. The company is listed on the Australian Securities Exchange under the symbol AGE and also on the US OTC markets under the symbol ALGEF. Andrea, it's great to have you back on the program. Welcome.
Sandra, yeah, it's good to be back and looking forward to updating your listeners on the progress we've made since the last podcast.
Been some good progress throughout the season here, and you guys are definitely on the ground moving along. So great, and the market's changed a bit, picking up, but knock on wood, things are improving. So why don't we get right into updates at Alligator? The company announced during August that it has approvals in place to conduct the field recovery trial work and since is mobilized and preparing modular plant along with well field development. Talk about where we are on progress, next items for completion on the schedule, and also how you're seeing the work planned because this trial will go into 2026.
True, yes, it will. So starting back at our approval in August, that was the state government approval that allowed us to start construction on site of the field recovery trial plant. So your listeners may remember we fabricated the plant here in Adelaide, South Australia, over the last 2 years, and we mobilised it to our warehouse in Whyalla in South Australia, where our field office is. Now we've got the pathway or the runway that we can now mobilise that kit to site. So we also had to then notify our contracting partners, RNs, who are doing the construction, and they have about a 4 to 5 week window to mobilise to site because they're using a lot of subcontractors, local subcontractors from the Whyalla region and surrounds. So I'm pleased to say October 7, there'll actually be feet on the ground. So next week I'm going up to oversee that and looking forward to actually seeing people on the ground constructing this plant. So we think that will take around a 2-month construction process into commissioning. And so then when we come back after the new year, we will start dealing with any latent commissioning issues and then start operating the plant into early 2026.
Good update on that, and wishing you guys good luck there as you guys get everything going here. And then, of course, the trial underway, and very excited to hear about the results as we move down the road here. One other item, the staffing. You guys had added some key people to support you and the company. Just talk a bit about those folks and what they bring to the table.
So I've been the Chief Operating Officer for the last 3 years, and we had quite a flat structure, commensurate with a junior explorer. But then as we've started to get into or closer to the construction of the field recovery trial, and it really is like a mini mine. So we had to obviously implement everything that we would normally do for a mine, and so that requires safety oversight, commitment to our obligations, that reporting obligations to the government, etc., and monitoring and etc. on site. So we've had to restructure so that we can affect all of those obligations and also the activities that we want to undertake post-field recovery trial. This also started when I was announced as CEO from the 1st of July. So my COO role essentially was dissolved, and so as part of the growth of the company, moving from this junior explorer space into developer, we've now started to structure the company in a way such that we have, an operations arm which is going to look after the entire operations of the field recovery trial, and also the team that will be delivering the feasibility study, which we'll talk about soon, no doubt. So that team is headed by a gentleman called David Brink. He's 30 years in the oil and gas space, and he will bring a lot of oil and gas intelligence smarts into the operation, as ISR is very analogous to oil and gas. So whilst he doesn't have any ISR experience, that's not a problem. In fact, I welcome new ideas coming in so that we can keep innovating and thinking ahead of the game. The other gentleman that's coming in, or is now started this week, is a gentleman called Christian Knott, and he does have IXR experience. He's looking after the approvals, really driving those mining lease approvals, starting through really now into the coming years. So he has done this before. He actually worked at Heathgate, subsidiary of General Atomics, and he's been working there for the last 3 years doing their approvals and also looking after the environmental and radiation staff on ground. We have only 2 people there. It's not a big department, but nonetheless, he will be able to bring that operational oversight to make sure they're well supported through the field recovery trial. The other initiative that I've implemented is we did have a head office in Brisbane, and so we're moving all of our functions to Adelaide now, so centralising all of our functions to Adelaide so everyone's under the same roof. And so with that change, I've recruited a new CFO. This gentleman is called Joe Satanto, and he has experience in moving companies from an explorer through to a developer, previously working at Hillgrove Resources. And so his track record in doing this, I was very happy that he joined us so that we can start getting on with building the company to the next stage.
Appreciate you walking us through that, some of the folks, what they bring to the table. I think that's an important piece of this transition from very early stage developer and explorer into more development stage focused on operational expertise and moving into production, hopefully here in the future. And of course, the operatorship and the people that come with that transition as well. Of course, we know your background and experience, that you're very capable in your position here, and adding people around you that can support what you're doing as well. So on the feasibility, we know the field recovery trial is a huge prerequisite to feasibility study, but talk a little bit about where we are on feasibility, what you see for feasibility progress in 2026, as far as, continuing that work. You guys are working through all of those components that go into the feasibility study, including inputs from the field recovery trial in first half 2026. Do you think that feasibility study would be ready in 2027? What's your thoughts, just as how you see the sequencing there?
Okay, well, look, as a stretch target, I'm really pushing for the feasibility to be wrapped up by the end of 2026. And why that is that I want to keep the mining lease approval process on track, as much as we can control that, because obviously it's up to an assessment with the government and the federal government. So I just want to do everything we can to make sure we're not the people who are slowing down that process. So I'm really pushing for that feasibility to be done and dusted next year. So to do that, we've highlighted a couple of companies that can partner with us in doing that work. The scoping study that we did in December 2023 also was good preparation for the feasibility, because we looked at that through our operational eyes and brought our experience into that scoping study, and really, steered that how we thought potential feasibility might look like in terms of the inputs. So the inputs are in that scoping study are close to what we expect to get from the field recovery trial, but obviously once you operate, there will probably be changes to that, but the general assumptions of the scoping study are not out of reality. So we think once we start getting preliminary data from the field recovery trial, we'll be able to start inputting that into the feasibility model and come to some conclusions and some financial metrics quite quickly, I hope. So the other thing we're looking at is we're doing a lot of the work in-house to speed up the way consultants, still have to learn about the project, etc. So we've got that knowledge. So we're working together with the consultants and doing some of the heavy lifting ourselves in that space.
Okay, so that's good. And that was better than what we had expected over here on timing. So it sounds like we'll basically go with this, get the feasibility going. The feasibility is good to go for the
Mm,
project as it's envisioned now.
mhm,
Is it safe to assume, Andrea, that once that gets going, it's for purposes really of getting the permitting pathway progressing well,
mm,
but obviously during that period of, to some extent, not really waiting around because there's always something to do.
mm,
But basically, to get back onto, while that is happening, I suppose, to demonstrate that expansion potential is my thinking. And so, is that more or less what you guys were thinking? So, as we get the feasibility study done, permitting on
mhm.
track, you guys will be looking towards some of those expansion opportunities during that time where things are a little bit slower.
Oh, correct. So we're in the final stages of negotiating access to the area to the south of Blackbush. So these are immediate extensions of Blackbush. So that's our top priority into next year. And we do have plans to deploy at least one rig, but I'm hoping we could secure two for a long-term drilling campaign in that area to the south, and also at the Plumbush prospect, which is 5 kilometres to the south of Blackbush. And the area in between Blackbush and Plumbush is also has no drilling in it, and but highly prospective channel areas where the uranium is hosted. So we are excited to start to get on ground there and drill. So drilling and drilling results will be the news flow coming through in that quiet period.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And so now I've got a better understanding because we think that there's some good potential left in this project that has not been
Mm,
uncovered and a lot more testing to be done. And I certainly get the pathway here. You guys want to get this permitting moving, which makes the most sense. And
mm,
given where we expect the market to be in this period in a couple of years ahead, it
mm,
makes a pile of sense to do so. So that's great and good strategy on that front. With that, I want to talk potential production scenario here,
mhm,
just as far as what do you think the timing would be? And I know this is very subjective to permitting, which is beyond your control, but
mhm,
is it out of the question that Samphire could be in potential production scenario by the end of the decade, meaning
mm,
basically 2029? Is that possible?
mm,
And do
mhm.
you think that that would work?
Well, thanks for that question because I actually asked government that question yesterday in a meeting. So, and the government actually asked me, when do we expect or when do we want to be into production? So my response to them was 2029. But knowing it's 2026, 3 years for mining lease approval is ambitious but achievable. So knowing that the government now are well behind us, having gone through this 3-year approval process, and having ironed out a lot of the different perspectives that government now have on water resources and the use of them, we understand where government is coming from in terms of what they expect out of a future ISR operation. So I think with that, we're going to work very closely with government now to try to fast track this mining lease approval. That being said, we have been saying to utilities that we have been meeting up with this year and previous years, but more this year, that we expect first production 2030, 2031 at the latest. So that's our target window.
Andrea, that walks right into my next question here is how you approach an offtake term contracting, how that portfolio is arranged in your view as,
Mhm,
someone who has operated ISR projects. Talk just a little bit about that based on what utilities are expecting, based on what you
mm,
see here in the market.
mhm,
Give the audience a flavor for how you view potential offtake and then
mhm.
standard term contracting and how you would structure a portfolio to really leverage the project and capture good market pricing as the uranium cycle matures.
Of course, your listeners are probably well aware the long-term price and the short-term price, keep them moving in a positive direction. We're seeing utilities, say 3 years ago when we were meeting utilities at the various World Nuclear conferences, when we first started out having our profile, trying to promote our profile with the utilities, it was mainly the US people that were coming, or the US utilities coming to these events and meetings. The last 2 years, the next year, we started seeing Europe starting to come in, the European utilities, EDF from France, etc. And then this last year, there's been a big change from when we would be chasing meetings with them. to now they chase us for meetings. So the demand is there for our supply. So, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon, particularly now with just recently Microsoft signed up to be a member of the World Nuclear Association, which is a big sign that I think we'll start seeing Google, Amazon and Meta signing up soon with their and plans to use nuclear power to feed stable energy for their AI centres. So I think they are going to start coming in, putting forward pressure on the market as well in terms of wanting supply and securing supply. So I think very positive tailwinds behind us in terms of pricing. So a year ago, I would have said, let's try and lock in a contract, maybe at the end of next year to start underpinning the company. But I think probably we would start looking at that more in 2027 once we're through the feasibility. We're well on the way of mining lease applications, and then we can start looking at, well, what's the pricing? We certainly want to secure, contracts for that first year of production, but the long-term pricing is to get over, 100 US a pound, and in fact, some of the ceilings now being contracted at around $150 a pound. So I think we're seeing good floor and ceilings there. So I think we just wait over the next year and see where we can pitch ourselves. We certainly won't leave it too late to make sure we're covered. So yeah, wait and see. Maybe the next podcast I can provide a little bit more structure to that. But we're aware of the bullish market. We're aware of the players. The players are aware of us. So it's really just timing. And I don't think there's much risk of that scenario changing in 12 months.
Yeah, I think, the company's in the driver's seat here just for the basis that the capex of this project is a task, but not an insurmountable task. And so it's not like you need a couple $1 billion to build this. So you have that tailwind, you have the production profile tailwind, you have market tailwind. The actual producers who can actually put cake in a can are in the driver's seat. And really, to some extent, Andrea, and at least in my view, to be able to do some type of offtake structure potentially to start that may eat into a little bit of the production profile for purposes of bank financing to shore up the structure of the project. I can see that, but definitely I see here in the coming years, subject to market conditions, which we'll keep a couple eyes on, you guys are really in the driver's seat here. So I agree. I don't think there's a rush. And there's a few other folks out there of who you know of as well that just, well, let's not be in a rush here. We'll get to it when it makes sense. I think the folks that have waited and held out, I think are going to be served well here because we've seen people sign stuff 40s, 50s, dollar uranium, and that doesn't look so great right now. So I like your approach is to be patient, prove up the project, and as you guys prove up the project, folks will come pay you a visit. So probably a good way to approach here. And of course, we'll talk on future episodes about this as well. But well, why don't we leave Samphire there unless you have anything else to add on that? But over to the exploration front. You guys really have pipeline exploration and potential pipeline projects that can follow here through discovery success at the drill bit. But you guys did have a discovery that was made at Big Lake during 2024. You guys also have the Alligator River's Uranium Province grounds. Talk about any plans that we should be aware of and how important these exploration pipeline projects are to the company as you guys seek multi-development project pipeline in the future.
Yeah, so a Big Lake project in the northeast of the state, which overlies the Moomba gas basin, which been supplying fossil fuel energy to South Australia mostly, but bits of Australia for a good 80 years. We pegged the Big Lake ground a few years ago using the model that a lot of the in-situ recovery projects, particularly in the US, are co-located with oil and gas basins. So we pegged this ground over the top of the petroleum leases, and we were the first uranium mineral explorer to enter that ground and do a program in August last year. But prior to that program, we did 2 years of technical analysis, particularly looking at all of the historical oil and gas wells to understand where we best need to target. Now, that inaugural program in August last year, which, I was surprised because you barely get a discovery on your first drilling program, but we pleased to say that we found significant anomalous uranium in sands over significant thicknesses from about 110 metres below the surface. So we didn't even get to test everything that we wanted to test. We saw this area of uranium mineralisation and we then started to, okay, well, let's drill a few more holes and see if it's replicated, and it was over, 100, 200 metre area. And then unfortunately it rained, so we haven't been able to get back there because it's still flooded. And we are making plans to either get a short program done in November, just to again understand the replication of what we're seeing there. But then we're planning a larger program next year, commencing around February, March, a sustained program for a number of months to really get headway into the Big Lake uranium project. And in addition to that, we're looking at expanding the program, not to just the site where we found the mineralisation, but wider. We're getting a bigger rig so we can test deeper into the sedimentary sequence, because my feel, if it's in the shallow sections, it opens up targets at a deeper level as well. So we're going to check out all of those options. Pleased to say, us being a first mover, Orano have just pegged, or some tenements south of us, using the same model. So others are recognising this now as an area that's got some potential. So, and companies that are very credible. So we're also talking to Orano, being neighbours now, and seeing how we can technically exchange ideas and get the best out of this, both of our projects in this region. I might want to touch on Alligator Rivers because we've been so busy with the field recovery trial. I have rediverted staff from that project to help with the field recovery trial. And that being said, we've collected a lot of data in the Alligator Rivers area for the last 3 years with our exploration programs. So it's time to take stocks, step back and look at the technical data that we have collected as in conjunction with the historical data, which is enormous amount of data from that area for the last probably 2 decades. So we're just taking stock and then reassessing the targets of the area, and we'll be back in 2027 with a plan for Arup.
Appreciate you walking us through projects there. Big Lake definitely is something of interest for the company. You obviously have confirmation now that other folks are digging around nearby, so to speak. Definitely looking forward to seeing you guys get back out there and follow up. Andrew, I do think that that area is going to be a key project for the company and pipeline building as well, potentially here. So looking forward to seeing next news on that. Well, why don't we talk just briefly capital structure, balance sheet, cover where we are on shares outstanding at the company, the cash on hand currently, and how that budget looks to carry into 2026. And with that, any key shareholders you want to mention that are on the roster?
So I'll start with market cap currently around 128 million. The shareholder makeup is around 60% institutions, high net worth brokers, banks, and a group, about 36% retail, employees, directors, and executives. We did capital raise back in June, 17.25 million, which topped us up to around 30 million cash. Since then, we've obviously been spending some money moving the field recovery trial forward. We think that the forward spend on that for the rest of the field recovery trial, initiating our feasibility study and initiating mining lease approvals, will be a further about $5.5 million. And then I talked about land access negotiations and resource extension, and our Big Lake discovery, probably another $6 to $7 million there, which we are about to spend. And obviously we got our working capital business development initiatives, which is around another 4. So the company's entering into a phase that we've never spent this amount of money before. We've just had a high spend. So we're well aware of making sure that we have the cash in the bank to continue operations well into 2026. So we're always, at the end of our last capital raise, we're always planning for the next one. So we're now in that phase to make sure that we're well covered. At the same time, being very prudent on what we spend and making sure every dollar is well spent and adds value to the company.
some good budget numbers there. Appreciate you walking us through that. And of course, good thing is, Andrea, in your case, you guys are in Australia spending Australian dollars. That's a good thing. Not spending US dollars somewhere else, raising in
Mm,
Australian. So
mm,
good stuff on that. With that, community comments, partnership alignment, local
mhm,
community work for the projects at Samphire or even at Big
mhm,
Lake, if there's anything up there of note, anything on that front you want to mention.
mm, mhm. Look, Samphire is tracking very well with our engagement. We've become more and more integrated into the community of Whyalla, which is the town nearby the project, and the local residents. So we're not only sponsor, but we do events where we provide seed banks to people's gardens, so we provide advice to people how to grow the natural native plants in the region, for example, through our environmental people. So we're just working very well, and the community is fully supportive. The local councils, the business development groups there are well behind us, local members are behind us. So we're very happy how that's progressing in terms of support for the project. There's even more support for the project with the hydrogen plans that the South Australian government had for the region have fallen away. So that investment's not going to be there anymore. So that's even further focused the community on us and what we can provide locally. So with Big Lake, that's been hard work in terms of understanding who to engage with, because we obviously Santos is there, and they're a big company. They've been there for over 60 years, and so we've had to engage with them and make sure that we can cohabitate oil and gas operations with ours. And so that's been some work, but now it's in a good space, and we're in a routine with that now, and which is enabling us to get on ground quite easily when we have a program to propose to execute. And the local Aboriginal community there, or the native title holders, are 100% behind the project at Big Lake. In fact, they see it as another opportunity for economic development for their group. And just on Wednesday night, I actually had them with us at a awards night, which we were nominated for the Discovery of the Year, Australian Discovery of the Year. And we won it, actually. So I'm proud to say, and they were there to share that with us, and they were, just very supportive and happy that this project is starting to get some legs.
Congratulations on that, and glad to know the communities are happy and in alignment with the project. And I think they very well understand, given the remoteness of these areas, and not a lot of things happening from an operational standpoint,
Mm,
that this is a good value add and a wealth builder and a chance for career building,
mm,
good skills. We always advocate as well. Very important to have education at least down to the high school level, if not further down, um,
mm,
on the importance of mining and those technical skills and why mining is so important to everyday life. Seems to be missing in a lot of school curriculums out there these days,
correct.
Andrea,
Mm,
and it's
mm,
a big deal. So really appreciate your guys' efforts on that. Well, short of anything else you want to add, Andrea, here, why don't we leave it there for this update? For potential investors who are listening in, Alligator Energy has a market capitalization of about 115 million Australian dollars. Why should the company be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors portfolio at this stage?
hmm Well, we're about, in terms of share price, we're about where Boss Energy was back in around 2017 when they were about to do their field recovery trial. So as an analogy, that's where we stand. And obviously, Boss went through the field recovery trial and into production. So we're just at the start of that growth trajectory. We're the next uranium mine to be permitted in South Australia. We're in a great jurisdiction that promotes and got proven approval processes with 5 mines already approved, 4 of them being in situ recovery. We're coming to market late this decade. We're on ground next month, getting this field trial underway. So an experienced in situ recovery team, which will affect the trial successfully. And we've also got this discovery, which can add some significant value to the company. Needless to say, we're always looking at other business development opportunities while we're doing those things. So good news flow coming through in the next 6 months, and hopefully beyond, with our resource expansion and progress on our mining lease applications. So we're going through our growth period right now and starting to hit the targets that we expect to hit, hopefully going forward.
And for further information, what is the best way for folks to reach out to the company?
Like I think through our website, we've got a investor email that people can use. They can also, the back of all of the investment ASX investor presentations, there's my contacts there. So please reach out to me through that channel.
Andrea, well, thank you for the update. Best of luck on the field recovery trial work that's ongoing, and we're looking forward to having you back to update in the coming months. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Andrew. Thanks very much.